Lord, I come before you, acknowledging that on my own, I cannot clearly see the path I should follow, because your word declares that a man is not the owner of his own way, nor is it in him to direct his steps. And today I refuse to continue moving forward without knowing if I am aligned with what comes from you, Father. There are things that in front of my eyes appear correct. They seem reasonable. They seem like they could work. Yet deep within I do not have certainty. I do not have peace. And I do not have the clarity I need to keep trusting in my own understanding. And I recognize that this lack of peace is not something to ignore. It is something to pay attention to, because it reveals that something within me is not settled. That is why I come before you today. Not to figure out the path by myself, not to rely on logic alone, not to move based on what seems right at the surface, and not to push forward just because I feel pressure to keep going, but to ask you to clearly show me the way I should go, because I do not want to walk in something that does not come from you, and I do not want to move in a direction that later will need to be corrected. I understand that moving without clarity can create consequences that could have been avoided if I had remained still long enough to hear from you. And today I choose not to rush ahead of what you are revealing. Father, your word says that you instruct and teach the way I should go, that your eyes are upon me, and that truth changes how I see this moment, because it reminds me that I am not searching for something unknown to you. I am seeking direction that is already clear before you. Even if it is not yet clear to me, the path I need is not hidden in confusion on your side. It is only unclear from where I stand. And that means the issue is not that the way does not exist, but that I must come into alignment with you to see it as you see it. Lord, I recognize that many times what I struggle with is not the absence of direction, but the desire to understand everything quickly, to have immediate answers, to move without having to remain in a place of dependence. And that desire creates tension within me. Because I want clarity without waiting. I want understanding without surrender. And I want to see ahead without having to trust fully in you. But today, I choose a different posture. I choose to remain instead of forcing movement. I choose to seek instead of assuming. And I choose to trust instead of trying to control what has not yet been revealed. There is an inner restlessness that does not disappear by thinking more. A pressure that is not resolved by analyzing every option, and a sense of uncertainty that cannot be fixed by gathering more information. Because what I need is not more data. What I need is direction that comes from you. I can think through possibilities. I can compare paths. I can try to reason my way forward. But without your clarity, all of that becomes limited, and eventually leads me back to the same place of uncertainty. That is why I do not come asking for more options. I come asking for clarity, for a clear sense of what aligns with you. Even if it is simple, even if it is not what I expected. Father, your word also warns that there are ways that seem right to a person, but their end leads somewhere completely different. And that truth confronts me, because it shows me that what looks correct is not always what is right. That what feels acceptable is not always aligned, and that what appears to make sense in the moment does not guarantee the right outcome. I do not want to build on something that only looks right on the surface. I do not want to invest my time, my energy, and my focus into something that is not established by you. And I do not want to move forward only to realize later that I stepped into something that was never meant for me. So today I ask you, close anything in front of me that does not come from you. Remove any direction that is not aligned with your will. And do not allow me to settle into something simply because it feels easier or more convenient. Protect me from confusing what is comfortable with what is correct, and from choosing what is immediate over what is right, because I understand that not everything that opens before me is meant for me, and not everything that feels accessible is something I should walk into. Lord, I also recognize that I cannot ask you to show me the way while holding on to my own preferences. I cannot ask for clarity while resisting what you may reveal. And I cannot ask for direction while still wanting control over the outcome. So today I do not only ask you to show me the path, I also ask you to prepare my heart to accept it, to walk in it, and to remain in it, even if it is not what I would have chosen on my own. Give me a willingness that does not argue with your direction, a mindset that does not negotiate with what you make clear, and a heart that does not resist what you establish. Guard my mind from running ahead, from creating scenarios that you have not confirmed, and from trying to fill silence with my own conclusions, because I understand that confusion often grows when I try to replace your voice with my own reasoning. Help me remain still without becoming anxious, to wait without becoming restless, and to trust without needing to force an answer before it's time. If the path is revealed one step at a time, then teach me to be faithful in each step. If clarity comes gradually, then teach me to remain steady in the process. And if understanding unfolds over time, then teach me not to demand it all at once, because I know that walking with you does not always mean seeing everything ahead. It means trusting you in what is being revealed right now. So today I choose not to move out of pressure, not to advance out of fear, and not to settle out of desperation, but to remain before you until clarity comes, because I would rather pause in your presence than move outside of your will. I would rather wait with you than rush without you. And I would rather walk slowly in what is right than move quickly in what is not. And with that, I stay grounded in this truth. You see the full path, you know the outcome, and you are able to show me exactly where I should go. In the right moment, in the right way, and with the clarity I need. Father, as I remain before you, I recognize that clarity is not something I produce. It is something you reveal, and I do not want to confuse movement with alignment, because it is possible to keep going and still be out of place, to remain active and yet be disconnected from what is right. Your word says that your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And I understand that you do not always illuminate everything ahead at once. You give light for where I am standing, and for what is directly in front of me, and that requires trust, because I naturally want to see further than what you are showing. Lord, there is a part of me that looks for certainty and visible confirmation, something that removes all doubt, something that guarantees that I will not have to question the direction again. Yet I understand that walking with you is not built on guarantees that remove dependence. It is built on a relationship that sustains it. I do not want to depend on signs alone. I do not want to rely only on what I can verify with my senses, because that would reduce my trust in you to what I can measure. And you are not limited to what I can measure. Instead, teach me to recognize your voice, to discern what carries your peace, and to identify what aligns with your truth, even when it does not come with immediate confirmation. Father, remove from me the urgency that pushes me to resolve everything quickly, because I understand that urgency can lead me to settle into something that is not established by you, simply to escape uncertainty. There is a difference between moving with purpose and rushing without direction, and I do not want to cross that line without noticing it. Help me remain in a place where I am willing to wait for what is right instead of accepting what is available, because not everything that is available is meant for me, and not everything that presents itself is part of the path you have set before me. Lord, I ask that you refine my perception, because sometimes confusion is not the absence of guidance. It is the presence of too many competing thoughts, too many internal voices, and too many interpretations that are not grounded in you. Silence what does not come from you. Bring order where there is internal noise, and establish clarity where there is uncertainty. Not by overwhelming me with information, but by giving me a steady understanding that does not shift with every new thought. Your word says that if anyone lacks wisdom, they should ask, and it will be given generously. And I stand on that today, not asking for complexity, but for clarity. Not for multiple directions, but for the one that is right. Not for options, but for alignment. I do not need to see every possible outcome. I need to see what is correct in your sight, because that is what sustains, that is what remains, and that is what leads to what is established. Father, I also recognize that clarity requires stillness, and stillness requires surrender. because as long as I try to control the process, I will struggle to hear you clearly. So today, I release the need to control how the answer comes, when it comes, and what it looks like. And I choose to trust that you are not withholding direction. You are preparing me to receive it correctly. Let me not mistake delay for absence. And let me not assume that silence means you are not working. Because I understand that you often work beneath the surface before revealing what is above it. Lord, align my inner state with your truth, so that when you make the way clear, I recognize it without confusion, without resistance, and without hesitation. I do not want to overlook what you are showing because it does not match my expectations. And I do not want to dismiss what is right because it does not feel immediate. Give me discernment that is not based on preference, but on alignment, not on emotion, but on truth, and not on comfort, but on what comes from you. Father, if the path requires patience, strengthen me to remain steady. If it requires trust, deepen my reliance on you. And if it requires humility, remove anything within me that resists surrender. I understand that clarity is not only about seeing the way, it is also about being prepared to walk in it once it is revealed. And I do not want to ask for direction without being willing to follow it. So today I remain before you, not forcing an answer, not creating my own conclusion, and not stepping ahead of what you have shown, but staying in a posture of readiness, knowing that you are faithful to make the way known, that you are consistent in revealing what is right, and that you do not lead into confusion, but into clarity that aligns with who you are. And in that confidence, I wait without fear. I remain without pressure. And I trust without needing to see everything at once, because I know that when you reveal the way, it will be clear, it will be steady, and it will be exactly what I need. Father, as I continue in your presence, I acknowledge that what I am seeking is not merely direction, but clarity that is rooted in you, clarity that does not shift with circumstances, and clarity that remains steady even when everything around me feels uncertain. I understand that the path I am asking you to reveal is not something I can force into view. It is something that becomes visible when I am aligned correctly within. When my thoughts are quieted, when my expectations are surrendered, and when my focus is no longer divided between what I want and what you are establishing, because as long as I remain divided internally, even if the path is set before me, I may not recognize it with certainty. Your word declares that the unfolding of your word gives light and brings understanding, and I hold on to that truth because it reminds me that clarity does not come from accumulating ideas. It comes from receiving what you reveal. There is a difference between trying to figure something out and allowing it to be made known. And today I choose to remain in a posture where I receive rather than strive, where I listen rather than assume, and where I stay grounded instead of reacting to every passing thought, because I recognize that confusion often grows when I try to move ahead of what you are making clear, when I attempt to define the path before it is revealed, and when I rely on my own reasoning to complete what only you can establish. Lord, there are layers within me that must be settled before I can walk with clarity. Areas where impatience tries to take control, where expectation tries to set a timeline, and where internal pressure attempts to push me forward before I am ready. And I ask that you bring order to those places, that you remove anything within me that interferes with my ability to recognize what comes from you, and that you establish a stillness that is not passive, but attentive, not empty, but aware, not inactive, but aligned. Because I do not want to move simply because I can. I want to move because it is right, because it is confirmed within, and because it carries the peace that comes from you. Father, your nature is not confusion, and I anchor myself in that truth, because it means that what comes from you will not leave me unsettled. It will not create division within me, and it will not pull me in opposite directions. Even if the path requires courage, even if it requires patience, even if it stretches me beyond what I am used to, it will still carry a clarity that is consistent, a sense of alignment that does not fluctuate, and a steadiness that does not depend on external confirmation. Help me recognize that kind of clarity, not by how easy something appears, but by how aligned it is with your truth. Lord, remove from me the tendency to second guess what you make clear, to overanalyze what you have already settled, and to revisit what you have already brought into alignment. Because I understand that sometimes the lack of clarity is not because you have not revealed the way, but because I continue to question what has already been shown, looking for something different, something more comfortable, or something that fits my own preference. Today I choose to release that pattern, and instead remain grounded in what is consistent, in what carries peace, and in what does not require constant reevaluation. Father, I also ask that you protect me from internal distraction, from thoughts that introduce doubt where there was certainty, from reasoning that complicates what was simple, and from influences that pull my attention away from what you are establishing. Because I understand that clarity can be disrupted if I allow too many voices, too many opinions, and too many perspectives to compete with what you have already placed within me. Help me stay centered, focused, and attentive to what comes from you, so that I do not lose sight of what is right because I entertained what is unnecessary. Lord, if the way is narrow, give me the willingness to walk it without resistance. If it is unfamiliar, give me the confidence to remain steady, and if it requires trust beyond what I can see, give me the strength to continue without hesitation. Because I understand that clarity is not always about comfort, it is about alignment. And I do not want to reject what is right simply because it requires more from me than I expected. Instead, I choose to remain available, open, and ready to walk in what you reveal, without trying to reshape it into something easier. So today I remain before you with a settled heart, not forcing an answer, not creating my own direction, and not stepping outside of what you are making clear, but staying anchored in the truth that you are faithful to reveal the way, that you are consistent in bringing clarity, and that you do not lead into confusion, but into understanding that is steady and firm. And as that clarity comes, I receive it without resistance. I walk in it without hesitation, and I remain in it without turning back, trusting that what you show is right, what you establish is firm, and what you reveal is exactly where I am meant to be. Amen.